Hey everyone, welcome to the Let's Get Printing podcast. I'm your host, Zach Dewhurst, the Business Development Manager at DecoNetwork. Today's guest is Nick Damin from Damin Printing, which is not your typical t-shirt printing shop because they actually do commercial printing in-house. They've been printing onto apparel for over 70 years at the company. So Nick has essentially taken over the company. He's the third generation owner, and we're really excited to have a fun conversation about apparel decorating and the commercial apparel world because both of them have seen a lot of changes over the years when it comes to digital and that having a big impact. So we're going to kick off the conversation, but before we do, let's talk about the awesome software DecoNetwork, the all-in-one platform that allows you to manage your shop from everything from quoting, ordering, purchase ordering, scheduling jobs, outsourcing jobs. DecoNetwork has both the order management solution and the front end, which features an online design tool, is integrated with supplier catalogs, and you can provide sites to your clients that then funnel into the order management system. Visit DecoNetwork.com today to do a demo and see for yourself why you should be using the game-changing software. With that said, how's it going, Nick?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, Nick. We met a couple years ago. You signed up for DecoNetwork software, and I helped you, get set up and implemented with it. And I look forward to always seeing you at Atlantic City. That's a show. Next week I go to Long Beach. Atlantic City is pretty decent sized show. Nothing like Long Beach, but it is fun to be able to connect with shop owners like yourself. And Nick, I've always found your shop to be a little unique. I talk with hundreds of shops throughout the year, and one, you have to have one of the oldest that I know of, and secondly, you guys do a lot of paper printing in-house and in that side of the business, which you just don't see very often. And I know your business and family have a rich history here. So tell us a little bit about Damin Printing.
Sure. So this is actually year 73. Yes, I have not been here for 73 years. My grandfather was in the printing business back in like the late 40s, working for a print shop in our town, and then went to work for what used to be called Lintz Printing. And then in 1952, he and my uncle bought it. We were basically in the basement of a little restaurant up the street. And then in 1962, we moved to our facility, which we're still in today, is 7,500 square feet. And then, we've just, embraced technology over these 73 years where, we've kind of outpaced everybody else and outlasted everybody else because we've kept investing and making sure we were on the up and up and kind of, we've always embraced our past. So, I have a press outside this room that's original from 73 years ago. And then I have one in the room next door that's, it's a digital press. It's 2 years old. It's state-of-the-art from Xerox. So, we've scaled and we've been able to kind of keep our history and do it at the same time.
And, when the business would be somewhat passed on from one generation to the next, did you ever butt heads with your dad of like, hey, we need to embrace this technology right now and so forth? What's that like? Because I've been in some family-owned businesses where it could be fun.
Yeah, it's very funny. So I kind of joke and say I've had the advantage of watching him and my grandfather interact for however many years that was. So I kind of took some mental notes over the last 20 years. There was a machine maybe 15 years ago that we just, we didn't use anymore. It was outdated. And my grandfather did not want to get rid of it, and my dad and I didn't want to get rid of it. There was a bit of a tussle, but it's kind of fun. You learn and you kind of know, what to expect, and sometimes you don't. So it's
it makes me think of like back in the day when you went American Chopper and just watching them build the bikes and the dad go back and forth. But that's something I love about this industry is it is something you can build up and pass on. And one thing I love about our industry too is people are never going to stop wearing shirts. Now, the paper side of things, it's definitely been impacted over the years. I mean,
100%.
again, talking about technology and digital, I've had some friends that were in the offset printing game. My father-in-law is actually the production manager of a 150-person offset digital printing facility.
Nice.
I've watched in their facility, because I tour it like once a year, and some of the things I've seen change there, similar to how digital's affected us. You know, when we think of apparel printing, you have an analog process like screen printing. I mean, that is as basic as it gets. And then we have our digital printing. In the paper printing world, the way I've always kind of looked at it is you have a lot of offset printing, which is essentially making what? It's lithography. Instead of making a screen, we make a roll plate. And we often could use CMYK, just like we could with screen printing. But now, again, these digital machines, it's amazing what they can do. Just like in the apparel world, when DTG first came out, that ink was so much more expensive than it is today. And the print heads and everything, it gets cheaper. And before you know it, you start to question, man, are we going to be 100% digital soon? Because the ink cost has gotten so much less, and the speed can also start catching up. So yeah, tell us a little bit about, that world of the industry.
Yeah, I think too, it's a question of resources. The room I'm sitting in 2 years ago had a 6,000 pound printing press sitting where this was. And as the years go on, there's less people to service those machines. The free machines I have 2 offset presses now. You can't, the only place you find them is in South America. You can't, they don't make them anymore. So, we've taken care of them so they last, but they run every day. But they run certain things. So, our offset presses basically are a powerhouse for envelopes and then any kind of form. So we run a ton of like black and white forms. The local hospital actually just shut down their print shop last year, so we absorbed all that work. This was awesome. But yeah, we have a nice marriage of offset and digital, and I'll throw in for you, we still have 1 letter press. But you can also, we have a Heidelberg windmill that sits right outside this building, outside my conference room here, that runs 2-3 days a week. So, we're still doing some perfing and die cutting and scoring and numbering. So, there's a place in Pittsburgh you can actually outsource all that work to, which is, an hour and a half or more of that. But we still do a good bit in-house. We will until that need's not there anymore.
Well, it's funny because, again, next week I'll go to the Long Beach Expo, and M&R will be there with some really big equipment. And then I'll go to the Printing United Expo, which will have apparel and the offset digital, and it'll make the apparel equipment look like a dwarf.
Right.
When you start seeing these Heidelberg presses that you just scratch your head, like logistically, you brought this here for 3 days. Like, it's nuts. Because it's a semi. It's as big as a semi. It weighs as much as a semi. And like you also said, Nick, the amount of people who know how to be, again, you have to be a lithographer is the way I look at it. You can be a screen printer, you're a lithographer, and that trade they're just not taught as much and so forth. So I bet it is a little hard. You keep those employees around. Yeah.
Yeah, it's challenging. You're right about the education too. We're close to 2 technical education centers, and they both used to have print shop courses, and they don't anymore. It's all gone. And they still have graphic design and digital, but you're not teaching that anymore because the need isn't there. But we've been fortunate too. We have great people. We've trained great people. But yeah, there will come a day where we'll just be a completely digital shop. Don't know when that's going to come, but it'll be here in the next probably 10 years.
When did you get into the apparel world? Because again, obviously that's not where you guys started.
Correct. About 12 years ago, a business associate of mine was actually looking for a new job, and he came from the screen printing and embroidery world, and he and I had a good rapport. I said, hey, why don't you come work for us? So my plan with him was originally just to sell commercial and digital printing. And then he said, well, I have this book of business that I don't want to walk away from. I said, well, maybe we don't have to. So I did some research and bought our first DTG machine. It'll be 11 years ago. And that was kind of our start. And I learned very quickly what I could not do with that machine.
Cotton. That's it.
Yeah. Can you print on 50/50? Well, you can.
You can't.
You can, yes. You don't want to, but you can. That was kind of their selling point. But, that's kind of where we started. We had one Anajet MP10, which we still have here. We have 3 more. But, yeah, we started there, and then I've just, over the last 13 years, just grown a network to expand that to, include, we just got a DTF printer, we have embroidery machines, and then I got a pretty good network of screen printers if I need to go that route. So that's how we got involved, and it's truly, it's probably, I'd say 65% of our business is apparel.
Yeah, okay, I was wondering, what that might be. Didn't know if you asked or not, but...
Well, it's easier to walk into a business or a new business to sell them T-shirts than as a box of letterhead. That's how I look at it. It's just the reality of it. But we've kind of embraced that too, and we've transformed ourselves that way also.
The first rule of investing is diversification, and when you're building a business, you are making an investment. So if you can diversify yourself, never a bad idea typically. And yeah, they're never going to stop wearing this, but there's no way we print the same amount of stuff as we did in the 90s. It's just not even close. Because, again, a tablet, even books. It's, actually, I went on to Best Buy, the Black Friday season. I always would get Blu-rays. They don't even sell Blu-rays anymore. And I'm like, what the heck? I feel old now.
Don't tell me, I'm with you. We've tried to, combat that too. We have, 3 in-house graphic designers. So, you may sell the person who's doing the catalog. Well, maybe we can't print, but we can design it for you. You know what I mean? So we've kind of broken that by doing that too.
Do you think that gives you an edge? Because, a lot of shops don't have in-house designers. Sometimes the owner has a graphic design background. Again, you can use a third party, absolutely. Is that you think pretty helpful in your shop?
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't go without it. Even to the point, everyone listening knows how it is when someone says they're sending you artwork, right? It's not really artwork.
No.
It may be a PDF file or some other type of PNG file, but there's intricacies in there that are not correct 95% of the time. So to be able to fix those or create them the correct way, super important.
When I have been in several shops with like a larger, I don't know, call it laser. Again, when I think of laser printers, I think of like the show The Office and how a lot of offices would have something like that. And then you have your just desktop laser and so forth.
Right.
But the one like you think in The Office, I've seen a few shops like Tor have those for menus and some basic things. Do you see that ever being a good investment these days, spending $5,000 to $10,000 in that? Or is it something, Deco recently became a sponsor of Shirt Lab. And one thing I've learned in the Shirt Lab is how to outsource. I thought I kind of knew what I was doing, and now I'm like, whoa, I can't believe you can get this stuff printed this cheap. And there's a guy in the group that is really, I have a lot of respect for. He's very intelligent. And he has eco-solvent printers, and he's like, I can't print for as cheap as these guys will after I pay my employees and stuff. It's kind of crazy. These wholesale trade partners, that's what they're all calling themselves. They're they don't call themselves contract decorators.
Right.
They call themselves a wholesale trade partner. And I thought I wanted an eco-solvent printer. I thought maybe I wanted one of those laser printers eventually from like The Office, but it's like, why? It's amazing how cheap somebody will be. So have you seen that impact, Nick, at all? Or You ever consider like, man, we could outsource this cheaper than doing it in house on the equipment we've had for decades.
Right. Yeah, and I guess everything has its place if you want to go that route. I think we just value, our customers know when they're coming to us, like, it's happening in this building. So I think that adds some value too. I also think when you outsource, you need to be careful you're outsourcing too. Prior to some equipment upgrades, we had some stuff we were sending out, and I would get a bag, and I was like, I can't honestly present this to the person that wants it. So, I think that there's value in some places, but there's also extra value knowing who you're working with and what equipment they're working with.
Okay. And when it comes to apparel, I like your strategy. It sounds like do what you enjoy and outsource the rest. If it sounds like a headache, we don't really want to do it. And like you also said, you're starting to do DTF and DTG. Do you see yourself keeping both of those around much longer? You're going to go all DTF out of curiosity.
That's like $1 million question right now. So we've been using DTF for, probably, 2-3 years. And it got to the point recently where I just kept looking and saying, I could save so much money just doing it for myself because the volume we were doing that I was paying somebody else to do. And to be totally honest with you, the one that I was in here printing by myself and I was pre-treating shirts and I just kept pulling that heat press down. Every time I did it, I said, if this was a DTF, I'd be done. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many extra steps. So, we're slowly seeing, I would say, 80% DTF, 20% DTG. But we're starting to kind of like spin those wheels where we're trying to like take some of that DTG work and just make it DTF. Unless the customer really wants to keep that hand, it's all transitioning slowly.
Yeah. No, it does. If you don't mind me asking, what do you think is the right amount of money to be spending on transfers a year to be like, if I've got the space, I should probably pull the trigger on bringing this in-house? What was the magic number?
When I was spending $3,000-4,000 a month on transfer.
Okay.
That was kind of my breaking point.
And what did you spend on a machine?
$25,000.
Okay. And that's very standard. And when you think of the value you get for $25K out of a DTF, makes the DTG look expensive.
Well, I think the real eye-opening moment was actually last year in Atlantic City when you're walking out of Al and there were maybe 2 DTG machines and everybody was selling DTF prints. Like,
yep.
Everybody. It was almost exhausting to try to like figure out, which brand, who to work with, what's the difference between this substrate and this substrate. But I remember also 10 years ago when you went to that show, it was the same thing with DTG printers.
Yep.
There was like 8 different brands there, and who were you going to go with? So, when you walk an industry show and you see the industry telling you something, typically it's a good idea to listen.
You know what I haven't done yet is I haven't reported this, but I got this idea from Stalls. I was doing a webinar with Stalls, and they were telling me how they walk around the room and they keep tally of some things. And I'm like, oh, that's smart. So at like the last 10 trade shows-ish, I've walked around the room and tally how many eco-solvent, how many UV, how many flatbed UV, how many screen. And it's exactly like you said, Nick. It'll give you an idea of where the industry is going. And it's DTF will beat all processes combined against it these days when it comes to the amount of equipment it shows.
Last year there were 2 screen printing manufacturers, maybe 4 or 5 embroidery, as far as production wise.
Yep.
And then everybody else DTF.
Yep. And what'd you go with?
EasyJet Pro from Equipment.
Okay. Happy?
Yeah, to be honest, the number one place I was outsourcing from was using that machine. So we had no issues, and my customers like it. So I just wanted to keep that kind of...
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, nothing really changes except now the fact that I'm just making it in-house versus outsourcing.
You had a tech install that?
We did it virtually. So
You're crazy, Nick. Crazy.
that's what they suggest. It was okay. I mean, it was 5 hours, and we installed it and got up and running, and we're printing today. So I mean,
Good. I mean, hey, that if it works, that that's out of the box, definitely. So, like, you've seen DTF in your 13 years. Would you agree this has been the biggest impact you've seen?
yes, because it allows me to do things I didn't want to do 5 years ago. Like right now, I mean, probably your area too. Everybody's doing like basketball leagues, right? So you got 10 moms or dads running leagues, and they call you and they want 8 shirts, and 8 shirts have numbers and names in the back, and then like the logo on the front. Well, before I didn't want to do that. Like
Cut vinyl and all that, and
most people don't want 100% cotton shirt.
yeah,
So that was my first hang up. You know what I mean? So now, like, do I have to pay my screen printer to print 8 shirts? He doesn't want to print 8 shirts. So now, I mean, as far as like sports and uniforms, like I'll take it all. Like we advertise more. It's just so much easier, especially, I mean, like I've coached for 20 years. So, I mean, I know that like once the roster's set, that means 2 days later, somebody else is going to join.
yes, it is. That never is done.
Right now I have to do one more shirt for, someone to join late. So, I mean, yeah, a couple of years ago, I just told people no. But now I'm taking it all on because it's easy.
Well, and here's what I've seen in the industry. Customers, they actually like the average customer orders t-shirts, understands that there's a digital technology. They may or may not know it's DTF. Most of them do. And they understand that we're not counting colors anymore like we used to so much, and the minimums have come down. So even our traditional larger screen print orders, at least is what I've seen, and I've heard from a lot of shops, their customers are placing smaller orders more often than larger orders in bulk. Instead of always guessing, the customer understands they don't have to buy as much. And I wonder, when it came to like the paper printing world, did you ever see that with digital? Like, was there a time where it's like digital started becoming more common, and there's, again, more low run versus having to set up a Heidelberg, litho press to do a ton?
Yeah, I mean, that's 100%. I mean, if somebody wanted 50 full color flyers, I mean, 10 years ago, I mean, first of all, that wasn't very common, but now, I mean, that's every day. I mean, if you need 25 of this, 50 of this, 100 of this, I mean, you're ripping a PDF file to, the server, and then you're imposing it, and you click a few buttons, the next thing you know, you're done. You still can't do that off Snow Rust. So, I mean, there's advantages there where, and we get a lot of like, well, I was going to go to Staples, or I was going to go to, I mean, you can go to Staples if you want, but you're going to pay a lot more. And, who knows what quality you're using. So, I mean, we can control that here very easily.
What percentage of your apparel clients also have you do some amount of paper printing? Would you guess?
So, a little backstory there maybe. That was originally a challenge when we started this, because I remember being in an event with my sales guy who I hired, and someone looked at me and said, well, when I think of Damon, I just think of paper. So I kind of like had a light bulb moment. I'm like, all right, we're going to break the stigma and get people thinking differently. Just to think, print in general, not just paper printing. I would say today, I mean, if you're a customer, you're probably buying both.
You're probably buying both.
80%.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, it's taken a long time to get there, though. Like, it wasn't like an overnight thing. We had to educate our customers, to go out and talk to them, and, maybe earn that business away from somebody else. But, I mean, it's we're there. We're definitely there.
Profitability. If I sold $1,000 worth of paper products versus $1,000 worth of apparel, am I going to have similar profit margins in both? Is it a lot, thinner in paper?
If you're selling $1,000 worth of digital printing, you're going to have a lot more profit than $1,000 worth of offset printing. as far as, well, no, as far as from going from digital to digital, it's probably pretty close.
Okay.
To be honest, I've never thought about it. Like I can tell you from digital to offset, the margins are way higher.
Way higher.
Yes.
Because again, offset's all about large volume, and yeah, I mean lower run. Hey, I don't know about you, but I would rather print 100 individual one-piece orders than 100-piece order. Because you got to make a lot more money. Right. And what's our goal? I mean, the most overrated number I think in business is revenue. I really don't even care what you made. I want to know what you profited.
Right.
I don't care how many shirts you print. I don't care any of that. What did you profit? And if you could print less shirts or whatever and make more profits, then that's what you should do.
Well, I'll tell you too, the beauty with DTF, especially in-house now, is, I mean, as you know, I mean, with our Deco stores, I mean, some of them we leave them open all the time, but some of them there's a deadline, right? So, I mean, we're going to close it on November 1st if it's like a school or the basketball team or something. And then, but you always have that one person 2 days later, oh, I forgot the order. So now, like, you know, okay, that's no problem. Like, print some more transfers, get the shirts in, press them, you're done.
I wish I knew, but I mean, I bet it's less than 5% who use Deco stores screen print anymore with them. Like, you can do batch production, but batch production doesn't mean you're going to screen print. If you were going to screen print, it's a given that you were going to do batch production, but I don't think anybody does anymore, because one of the biggest reasons is exactly like you said, you never have the whole order yet. It's always going to be that straggler. And, you know, one of my favorite things about DTF is I can mix and match products. I can everything's going to look the same. You DTG'd it, then you had to DTF it, or you screen print it, and then it's just not going to look the same.
Well, it's that waiting game too. I mean, like sometimes, I mean, you know, like if you set up a store, some people think they're going to sell like millions. I'm like, dude, you sold 5 pieces. You know what I mean? But sometimes you get the situation where maybe it's a, you know, one color left chest and they sold 100 pieces. So I'm going to outsource that every day.
Or you're going to buy screen print transfers.
Right. But sometimes it's only 6. So you got to be whatever.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. Again, POD, I see that just growing. Was that a part, you know, if you get into DTG before, I mean, POD was kind of what you did. Has that always been a focus in the business?
We did, I'm not sure if you're familiar, it was called Ink Locker. You remember Ink Locker?
Yeah. Well, there's so many different brands with Locker in it. MyLocker.net. Yeah, we have so many.
Ink Locker was a direct integration with Anajet. I believe at the time it was the only integration with Anajet. And that was probably, I don't know, 7 years ago. So Ink Locker was working with like the Zazzles of the world, and you would order from Zazzle, and we would have basically a queue every day, and we could see like, hey, we could send you 80 pieces. And then they would send us the 80 pieces. The artwork would actually flow directly and rip into the machine, and then we would print those 80 pieces when they got there and send them out. We did that for a while, and then it kind of just, I think they kind of took on too many clients at one time, and it kind of fell apart. But that's our really only print on demand that we've done with like direct integrations. I mean, it was cool.
Well, let's redefine what print on demand means, because that's probably what I should redefine. To me, print on demand doesn't mean we have to be doing printful or printify. It really means every time we launch a store and we're taking orders and we're getting them out, to me, that's printing on demand. I don't have to have you come to me, say, I need this, and then we're going to do it. I am decorating on. I met with Sanmar recently, and one of their higher-ups really wanted to call it decorating on demand. You know, because like let's read about, but nobody is going to go with it. I love it, but POD, I'd like to redefine it. At least I'm going to. Us at Deco is like, it's fulfilling a job. That's what I've always looked at POD. It could be from your customer. It could be from a customer's customer. But if you're drop ship fulfilling your printing on demand, is the way I looked at it. You do that with a lot of your customers, though, with
Sure.
right? Like you do great. Yeah. And that, though, you've seen that really become more popular over the years, right?
Yes. I hate to use the word Amazon, but yeah, some people think it's very Amazon-like, where that's just going to be immediate. But yeah, I mean, we have, we kind of break our stores into two pieces. We have one group where every 2 weeks we kind of gather the orders and decorate and send them out, and then the rest of them are on demand. So I mean, it's grown significantly.
And do you ever have new customers actually bring it up to you? Hey, do you offer stores?
We do, but I'm also still surprised at people that think it's like a new concept. I feel like by now most people should know, like
Every-
we can do this. I'm like, yes, like once you buy things online, like we can definitely do it. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we have tried to take a lot of that, and I don't want to say force it on customers, but like encourage them to do it, because for us it's easier, and then for them it's easier because they don't have that person in house that has to go out and try to like gather people's orders throughout the building or multiple buildings. The whole thing is streamlined. So we've encouraged that multiple times.
What percentage of your stores are ordering portals? And what I mean by that is it's a password protected site, and it's meant to make life easier for groups. Because when I first signed up for DecoNetwork and the stores, again, this was 14 years ago. I was 20. I couldn't even liquid drink when I found the software. And I was like so excited, like I'm going to be able to do all this crap. And you brought it up, like anybody you would give a store to, they would be all excited, like, oh, we're going to make so much money together. And it's a lot of hoping that they are successful. And what I've seen definitely through the years and through all my conversations with Deco users, ordering portals, there are more ordering portals now than there are actual front-end sites, because the front-end site is some hoping, like we're going to make some sales, versus an ordering portal, we're going to make life easier for both parties, and it's a guarantee that it's worth our time to build it. So what percentage, would the breakdown be in your shop probably?
I don't know an exact percentage, but I would say, I mean, we have, taken away pain points from several customers. One example, the giant Sandmark catalog. They used to like hire 10 new people and give them the catalog and say, here, like pick something out you want to do. Who you want? We'll have like you get this number of dollars, and then like one person got all these like handwritten notes back, and then they had to like organize all that and then send it to somebody else who would decorate it. I mean, that's all on a Deco store, and we send them a gift certificate, and it's done. That's it. They don't have to touch it. It used to be like part of their payroll process. So I mean, as far as we have probably 60% is that.
Probably a little bit more though. You have more ordering portals than I want to sell merch and make money from.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what anybody out there like thinks of POD and so forth. I mean, remember, this will make life easier for all parties. When it comes to apparel, like we talked about having an in-house designer and so forth, most apparel for businesses, unless it's an event, what I get is a logo. When it comes to paper printing, it's a lot busier of an artwork a lot of the time. It's a way busier. And in my opinion, I don't know how you design a business card without using templates. I think when I think of paper and everything, it's like you really want to work from templates. Do you see that being a lot more important for that versus apparel? Or do you think, because at Deco, we are building more and more design templates so that when that person doesn't have artwork, they have something. But in the B2B world, for apparel, it's not as common that I need to design a whole lot, at least in my shop.
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge on the commercial printing side is just, if I'm designing a full front for a T-shirt, there really isn't a step, maybe a size restriction. You know what I mean? Like you want to keep it like 10 inches or 12 inches. When you're designing for like a business card we do a lot of like catalogs and periodicals. So you're designing like a 36-page booklet.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a whole nother ball game, Bert.
You have to know, like, getting back to like why it's important to have good designers. You have to know like your bleeds, your layouts, your gutters. I mean, all kind of stuff that most people don't know. So I mean, that adds a whole new layer of complexity that you're not just slapping a left chest on something. And then it also depends on what you're running it through. How many you're like. I get a lot of people like on the commercial side to say like, well, just print this. Here I need 2 of these on a sheet and give me like 500 2 on a sheet. I'm like, well, that's not really how we do it. Like, we're not printing on this sheet. We're printing on this sheet. Yeah, and it means so like it's going to be 8 up and it's going to have bleeds and it's going to be on 12 by 18, and we're going to duplex it on this side, and there's just like way more factors involved. So I mean, I think that too. Like, our staff, and we have all 3 of my designers have 20 plus years in the industry. 2 of them have screen printing backgrounds. One of them has screen printing and sign and print background. So I mean, there aren't too many things we can't do.
Okay.
To answer your question, it's way. I mean, the complication level over here versus here is way different.
Yeah, I mean, again, the print order, the screen printing, you got to think the mesh cap. There's so many things. It's just like with digitizing. What type of thread weight are we going to use? What needle size? Like, if these questions aren't being asked, you're never going to get the best results. And yeah, it's pushing a button can't. We'll rip it. It'll work. It's not just that easy. Like, you push a button. And when I walk through, so like I'm in Columbus, Ohio. We have a lot of pretty big companies here, so they do like all the Victoria's Secret. They're headquartered out of here, and just whenever they're printing, you walk in the facility and they have all these different stock. So when I say stock, you have the matte, you have the gloss, you have the thin paper, the card stock, and so forth. And it's a very climate-controlled environment,
Yep.
When you go into the digital room, it's similar like in my shop where, hey, this humidity, we've got water-based inks in here, we need to keep it higher. Over here, we're storing our transfer paper that we printed on. We can't let humidity get to it. So, yeah, that's got to be, when somebody was like, DTF, you got to respect humidity. Anybody who DTG'd understood that. And I bet from your world coming, you knew like, okay, we're going to need a room for this to work properly, or we're going to put it next to the DTF. You can DTG in the room, you can DTF.
Yeah, when we first got the first Anajet, we would start printing in the morning by 1 o'clock. Nobody informed us about the humidity thing, okay? By 1 o'clock, I'm like, man, these prints are bad. Like, what is going on? Like, nothing has changed. And then we would call and they said, what's humidity? I'm like, I don't know what humidity is. Like, what difference does that make? Like, well, you need to be humid. So I bought like 3 Sunbeam humidifiers, and ever since that day, it's been great. But the DTF machine's in the same room as the DTG machine. So it's all climate controlled, humidity. Yeah, so we learned. It was so funny. We were doing like the DTF training. There were so many questions that I asked only because I knew from the DTG side that if I didn't have DTG mirrors, I would have no idea to ask questions. You know what I mean? He was almost like kind of taken back, like, why are you asking this? I'm like, well, because I've done it with these machines. I want to know I don't need to do it here.
It wasn't, I think anybody who went from DTG, who had experienced DTG, the transition to DTF was a little bit easier. Because you've been in the digital side. I mean, I bet the latest digital printer you got for commercial printing was a lot easier for you to implement and know how to use than your first one, decades ago.
The first one we had, the ink was like a waxed. Like, it was so new, and it was like these little wax cartridges, and you put it in, and it would like melt the wax, like onto the paper, right? Which was okay until like we did a menu for a restaurant. They put them in the plastic sleeve, and they try to take it out, and the wax transposed on the plastic sheet. I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, didn't know it was gonna happen, but yeah, it's all toner based now, and heat fused. So it's come a long way.
and that equipment, just like in the apparel world, it's just gotten cheaper. The quality's gotten better. But again,
Easy that. I mean, like we use all Xerox equipment. I sign a 5-year lease at 3.5 years. They come in, you ready for a new one? Yep, send it over. New one comes in, old one goes out.
what's that? It's not a situation where it's not a razor and blades where they give you the machine and sign a consumable contract, is it?
Kind of.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, we'll give it to you. Again, you think about inkjet printers in the 90s before we had all the knockoff ink.
Right.
We were locked in. They just gave it to us in the 90s. Hey, here it is for $50. Now buy the cartridges. Will be $80 every time we need to replace them.
So you basically sign like a monthly lease, and then you pay per click. So and then all the services included. Like our machine had issues today. I called. They'll be here tomorrow. They take care of it, and out the door they go.
And you don't get invoiced for doing that.
Nope.
That's a lot of peace of mind.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and we're fortunate too. Our 2 service techs are both within half an hour here. So I know they're going to be here.
It's very hard to get somebody to have to follow this. It's not impossible, but I'm starting to hear more DTF equipment manufacturers think about practically giving these machines away, or at least at cost, and forcing you to use their consumables. Because, hey, at the end of the day, they could make $10K off the printer. They could make $30K selling you the consumables.
Right.
The ink and film and paper. But with DTF, I can use whatever things I want, but I'm going to mess with my colors is the problem. And I like what you said. You went with the machine that you knew your previous guy was using. So you knew you could get pretty much the exact same colors, and you weren't going to be shocking the customer with a totally different print compared to what you were outsourcing.
Well, and there's that unknown too. Like we first got our DTG machines. I bought an Anajet DTG machine, so I was buying their ink, I was buying their solvents, I was buying all their stuff because I was a little afraid if I bought somebody else's, it wasn't going to work the same. You know what I mean? So they weren't forcing me to, but I was pretty comfortable doing that. I pretty much had done that for the last. And a couple of years ago, we broke away and started buying some other off-market stuff. But for a long time, I didn't feel comfortable not buying the manufactured product.
Well, and you realize that their cyan may not be the exact same cyan, and you start getting things thrown off. And have you ever used a spectrophotometer in the commercial side of printing?
Mm-hmm.
You do, so you have one in your shop.
Yep.
How often do you have to use it?
You're supposed to use it more than what we use it, but the digital technology for the paper side has gotten so good. The naked eye you can't tell.
Okay, and there's a couple things I want to unravel there. One, when you're printing onto paper and you don't have a second step of applying it, it's a lot easier, I would argue, because you don't have that second step to throw off color. Because, hey, sometimes when you print on the DTF versus applying it, that coating will do something to it.
Right.
So for DTF, what we're supposed to be doing is we're supposed to be using that spectrophotometer every time we change a consumable. Also realize that our suppliers often change consumables without exactly telling us. So the manufacturer changed something, and that's now a little different than we realize. But also the time of the year. When the temperature and the location can really mess with these DTF printers and so. Do you ever have to periodically do something similar to that?
Not really. You see that a lot with DTG. Right now it is 9 degrees here. So, that room's
is that here?
Yeah. So it's different. And we've even seen, and it's hard because you don't know what's in those materials, right? In the ink or something. So we've printed the same way for 3 years, and all of a sudden, something is just off. And you don't know what it is. Did they change a form in the pre-treatment? Did they maybe change ink a little bit? But you can just tell that something, especially on a repeat order. But we then basically turn to mad scientists and try to figure out why did that happen?
Yep.
Because you can see, customer A got this shirt now they're getting this shirt, and they're just slightly different. So what changed and why did it change?
Yeah, it did. it can be frustrating, and then it can be so satisfying once you've figured it out. And you can really be like, what the heck? In my shop,
Backs, I go to the shows and people are like, you should try my pre-treatment. I'm like, I'm okay. Like, I know this works. Like,
Yeah.
I try yours, then I have to go back through all those steps to like wash it and dry it and see how many. Like, you know, I don't have to do that. I don't want to do that.
no, but pre-treating is the number one reason people ditch DTG if possible. I mean, yeah, we're limited on cotton, but pre-treat is not fun, and it'll wear down. I swear, I probably could make a press that just presses DTF or any transfer. I could make that press could last decades. You throw pre-treat at a press, I mean, you're going to break it down. You're putting glue, and then it's the moisture's going up into the housing. Eventually, you're going to kill that thing.
We have a wall right over here in the other room, and you can see there's like a square because we used to have like this wooden thing that we made, and you take the Wagner spray gun, right? And then, well, the worst part was, okay, so maybe like someone was doing it in the morning, and maybe I went in the afternoon. Well, maybe I wasn't spraying as long, or you know what I mean? There was so much variable, and it got to the point I'm like, we can't keep doing this. So I bought a speed treater, and it's been great, and everything is uniform. But man, yeah, you can see the stain in the wall, where for months we just like experimented to see if we get the right amount, and you'll never get the right amount.
Yeah, and again, DTF, they're our solution to so many things. We'll just DTF it. You don't even have to worry. But you brought up a number, you know, when you were spending $3 or $4 grand a month. And that's when you were starting to think, you know what, maybe I pull the trigger on the DTF. Deco's a part of the Shirt Lab group, and we had a fun debate a couple months ago. And I was kind of passionate about it because there were several people in the group spending 50 to 70K in transfers so far in the year, not even the entire year. And to me, I was like, that's a point that I would buy the equipment. And they just didn't. Then they would joke, well, I don't want to have to go over there and print for 3 hours. And I was like, you know, in that 3 hours, you saved $400. What? Right. Do you realize? And what was funny is everybody in the conversation who owned DTF equipment agreed with me. Like, you guys, I get DTF can be kind of difficult to get in started and so forth. It's not just heat pressing. It's a little bit more complicated. It's not in the same world of screen printing. And that's what I was like shaking these screen printers. Like, you guys screen print and you think DTF is going to be difficult to implement? Right. You realize how little the learning curve is. You got to get it down into start, and you got to respect humidity and whatnot. But gosh, Nick, you can put anybody on the machine to send artwork to it for the most part. There's no skill there. You have way more skill everywhere else throughout the shop, I think.
Well, and the other, aspect is, as we look at some of the stores we're doing, you have maybe 2 different designs, and maybe there's 2 different colorways. So now I have 4 different designs technically. And then I sit here and we look at it with production, and we're like, well, there's 24 of these, there's 13 of these, there's 8 of these, and there's 50 of these. So do I send the 50 to the screen printer, and do I do the other 3 here? Do I send these 2? Like, we don't have to have that conversation anymore. We're just going to print a bunch of film, we're going to press it, and out the door it goes. And now my screen printer's happy because I'm not sending him all these complicated art recorders. And he has to take extra time to sift through and put it, you know what I mean? Like, it's just an easy solution for everybody.
Well, you can knock out colors better, and then now I've got a better hand because I knew that you have flexibility. And Nick, you may be like me, where if I've got that client ordering all the time, I can print a little extra film and have it sit over there, and I've got 70 cents in a sheet versus $4. Right. And now I've made this quicker for everybody.
My screen printing bill was, $6 a piece. Well, now I'm saving that money because I'm just going to DTF it and not worry about it.
You ever tell your customer this is what we're going to use, screen versus DTF? Do they care?
I think it depends on who it is. I don't think most people care. I think if you have like a big enough transfer that it feels filmy, you know what I mean? I think that people care. But I mean, for the most part, I think if the quality is there, that's all they care about.
I went Deco sent me to an event. It's kind of funny. For a long time, I always wanted to go to these things, and now essentially I'm paid to go to them, and I have a blast. And I went to this Printing United summit, and it was real interesting because everybody there was just very intelligent, very successful shops. You had to be invited. And we were all just kind of laughing. This was a year and a half ago, and we're all like, the customer does not care about the hand. Nowhere near to the point we thought. They care about a perfect print. Like DTG, I agree. You can get a little bit better of a hand. But I sent things out 10, 15 years ago. It's like, gosh, I know this could look better, but based on what I have to work with, this is as good as it's going to be. Now I can print that same design. It's going to feel a little bit more rough, but that print is going to look perfect in the eyes of the average customer because no color is faded. Everything's very opaque. We're going to sacrifice a little bit of hand for it, but most customers would prefer that. From my experience and my conversations, we thought it was a much bigger deal, I think.
And 90% of the people don't care or just don't know. And I think the other 10%, if you know who your customer is, then you can just act. Like I had a customer last week. We've been doing DTG forever, and we took a piece of film and put it on the same shirt, and I took it to them because there were some gradients in it. I said, look, I put them side by side, and I'm like, this one, if we just take this gradient out, it's going to look really cool, and it'll pop. And they look and they're like, I like this one. They want the DTGs. That's what I did. But I think that's like a small percentage of what you run into.
And that was more of an artwork also limitation. You were asking them to change their artwork. When you list your, do you market this is going to be, does the customer know? They do know. No, they don't. Nope. So when you take an order, we just call it printing, and what method we use is going to really come down to what we think works best as long as we don't have to change your artwork. Is that fair?
Correct, yeah. I mean, if there is a giant graphic on there, I will tell them and one nice thing too is I can print a piece of film off your shelf. Here's what it looks like. Do you like it? If not, we'll do DTG.
So, okay, and you may DTF a one color 70 shirts. Sometimes you may screen print that. It just depends. I mean, is there a okay? Yeah. And what is your make or buy decision? Is it kind of dependent on how busy you are? I think that also comes into play, right? I mean, when we're outsourced, I mean, sometimes, hey, it's going to, maybe it's not as efficient or whatever, but yeah, I think that's another, it's not just.
We actually had this conversation last week. I mean, right now, most people in this, in this industry, January slow. If we get a big order in and we can just do a DTF, we're going to do it. If this is September, probably shipping out the screen print. And then labor's involved, then who's available, and we have some part-time people, and they can help. I mean, but yeah, it's those are the two variables. Time of year, we'll be busy, and deadlines also. We're getting it all the time. So,
Nick, it's been a very enjoyable conversation. I've always had fun talking with you. I always learned something from the commercial printing side. I didn't realize you were still, it was that recent that you guys got into apparel, considering the actual age of the business. And I do find it very interesting that you shared, it sounds like it's a really good move that you did that 13 or so years ago, because again, it's just, the world's different, obviously, of what we're going to be printing on.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, this place would look very different without the apparel side. I mean, especially after COVID, that dramatically affected the commercial side. We do a lot of posters and programs and venues, and now you go into a restaurant, you just can't
QR code
menu, right? So thank God we made that move. We've been doing well with it, but we'll keep pressing on.
Well, ironically, you'll keep pressing on.
That's right, buddy.
And yeah, you've been around a press or two. I do find it funny with everything, the lithography and everything, and you were like, I'm not going near the screen printing stuff. You knew. No.
I've toyed with it over the last 10 years. truthfully, the place that I outsource to has the best people and the best technology, and I can't touch it. I basically have my own schedule. They're very flexible, and if there's an issue, they take care of it. So and to be honest, I don't have the space.
Yep. And
I'm fully maxed out.
I think they're on DecoNetwork, Pittsburgh Print House. I think, and you do know you can click a button and send an order from your fulfillment center to theirs.
Yes, we talked about that a couple weeks ago, actually.
Yeah, you push the button. It's amazing, DecoNetwork becoming a network.
Correct.
Because, again, I say it all. I'm asked all the time, you could start today, what would you do? I'd buy heat press. I'd outsource DTF transfers to bought my own, and then I'd outsource everything else. Because there are really good contract decorators out there that are just will make life easy, and you just have to find the right ones. And I'm kind of like you, Nick, where I like the idea of working with somebody, a local contract decorator, if possible. And local doesn't mean it has to be 10 minutes down the road, right. But that you can expand it. There's a lot of contract decorators out there. You just got to find the right ones to work with. Nick, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of months in Atlantic City. Impressions. Guys, that's still a great show. Impressions has first in Long Beach, then they go to Atlantic City, and then Fort Worth. So there's a show throughout. And then Nick, somebody like yourself, if you've never been, Printing United, oh my, that is literally like the Damin Printing show, because half of it's paper, half of it's apparel. And it's kind of like Damin Printing, where it used to primarily be commercial, and now apparel is starting to take over because, again, it's just same situation as you. People are getting that so much. So Printing United is Orlando, and that is going to be a fun show. Last year was in Vegas. So thanks again so much, Nick, and check out Damin Printing.
Thanks, Zach.